Yes.
Okay. Oyez, oyez, oyez. I will call to order the Sierra Madre Planning Commission meeting of Thursday, November 21st. Can we have roll call?
Chair Hutt,
Here.
Vice Chair Dennison, Commissioners Catalano, Desai,
Here.
Pevsner,
Here.
and Spears.
Present, and you can, and Tom just.
Oh, and
And we have
Vice
one more.
Chair Dennison has just arrived.
Okay. We have a quorum. We will move on to approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion?
Also move.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries unanimously. Next, we'll move to approval of the minutes of November 7th. Are there any comments or corrections?
7. Yes, I recused myself from the August 1st and the September 19th approvals because I wasn't there.
As did I.
Okay, what line is that?
The what?
Can you tell, Jen, what line that
Do you
correction
need
is
to know
on?
what lines those are?
The line number.
29 and 32? Does that make sense?
Okay. Anything else? Or we will have a motion?
Move to accept the meetings, or the minutes?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I will abstain as I was not at that meeting. Next, we'll move to community input. We have a community member. Would you like to give input?
Not this time.
Okay. If any other members of the community would like to give input on items that are not on the agenda, please feel free to come forward. Seeing none, we will move to our public hearings. Our first public hearing is Hillside Development Permit 1507 and Conditional Use Permit 1507. We have a staff
And
presentation.
We have a staff presentation this evening. It's a PowerPoint presentation. Before we begin, I just wanted to point out that on the dais is revised Planning Commission Resolution 19-11, and also a red line edit, free page, explaining the changes to the red line. And essentially what it's doing is, since the commission made a modification during our last meeting of October 3rd to allow the building to be located closer to the front yard setback, this is alluding to that impact and the requirement, identifying the specific code sections to allow that modification.
Okay, great.
So I will begin with a PowerPoint presentation. So as I mentioned, this project was last reviewed by the commission on October 3rd, on October 3rd, 600 Baldwin Court, which is lot 25. The applicant is requesting to construct a two-story, 3,719 square foot Craftsman Revival style single-family residence, totaling 4,139 square feet. The material board, which I can pass around again, is, will be going around shortly, consists of earth tone colors, asphalt shingle, roofing material, and a cultured stone material as well. And that cultured, actually, let me see, which lot do you have here? Is that lot 25?
Lot
No.
9.
This is lot 25. That's the next one. Just to give you a refresher, the lot is located along Carter Avenue and Baldwin Court, which is highlighted in red in the Stonegate project. It's the first property as you enter the development. An overview of the project in terms of a perspective view and location and adjacent of other structures that are proposed and some approved or in various entitlement phases. Yes.
Question, part of our responsibility is to look at the houses in relationship to one another.
Right.
And when there was only one or two, not a problem. Now, there are more, and we receive these drawings. The question I have is, the images that we are seeing, accurate reflection of the design that we approved?
In some cases, I've noticed they were not on other lots, but for the most part, as we progress through this process, we are asking for those to be updated. And we have done so in some instances, yes.
Because we have to find the houses in relationship to one another and relationship to the barn and house, so
Well, three
I
of
can't
these are-
I can't remember them all after a while, so.
Right. And lot 26 right here, we have not seen yet.
Right,
So
right.
it's a placeholder.
But that one, the next one we have, right?
That
We
one
approved
was,
That was
lot
the first one.
24 was the first one that was
Yeah.
approved.
Right.
I don't remember
This one
that
was approved, and then that one.
I don't remember the middle one.
That was the first one I think we looked at. Then
Oh.
that's the mid-century.
Yeah,
That one has not been approved yet.
the far one.
And the second one for tonight is right on the corner, right?
It's right here.
Right.
Yeah.
And we haven't approved that other one on
Oh, we
The,
haven't, across the street.
And I'm okay with them making them white or something like that to show that those are,
Existing structures.
well, but the ones that we have not approved, to make them some neutral color so that
Okay.
I'm fine with them being a placeholder, but at some point in time, we have to figure it out what's next to what.
Okay. Or we could even filter that so it becomes more of a
ghosted.
ghosted plan, an image of it.
Yeah.
Okay. So these are the photographs of the site looking from various vantage points along Baldwin Avenue and Carter Avenue. In particular, the commission was concerned, and we also heard from neighbors about the views looking up towards the site from Carter. This is coming up Carter, heading west, and this is directly in front of Carter Avenue. And then other views as you come up from Baldwin and Carter. So I wanted to concentrate on specifically on the commission's concerns that were identified. And on this top corner here is the previous site plan. And the lower corner is the proposed revised site plan. The area that's shown in cross or in dashed line in red was the location of the original footprint of the building. And in terms of the response, the commission said to move the house farther north toward Baldwin Court in order to reduce the visual impact of the house from Carter Avenue. The architect's response to that, they moved the house 5 feet north toward Baldwin Court, and now the front setback has been reduced from 25 feet to 20 feet.
There's something wrong with that drawing. The previous site plan, the porch goes over the setback. Oh, the setback, oh, I see.
There's the,
They changed the
It's-
setback.
The setback line has
Right.
changed. Okay, I'm cool.
yeah, moved
No, it took me a
5
while
feet
to
north.
figure that out, because I kept looking and I'm like, how did this move? And I'm like, oh, you moved the setback.
Thank you.
Okay. So concern number 2 was to reduce the mass and bulk of the second story in order to minimize the building silhouette against the skyline. So the previous floor plan is here. There it is, shown in red outline, and the floor plan shown in black solid lines is the revised. So the architect's response was at the northwest corner, the second floor loft is eliminated. This was a loft optional bedroom location. And that the stair volume is made smaller. That was existing. This is what's been revised. And the intent was to reduce the overall mass of the second story. This is still in response to commission concern number 2, shown in elevation. So you can see where that second story bedroom loft was eliminated. This was elongated further west as the commission directed. And there's some other modifications that we see towards the side elevation facing east. Previous sections and revised sections in response to commission concern number 3, which was to enlarge or lengthen the one-story building mass at the western portion of the building and lower the finished floor elevation closer to the pad elevation. So as you can see, that has occurred here. This is showing the module being elongated from what was previous. And also shown in floor plan. Commission concern number 4 was to consider adding a trellis on the ground floor of the south elevation in order to break up the building mass. And we can see that occurring on the elevation here, south elevation, and looking east, and the floor plan.
Although I did not, I saw the trellis, but I did not see in the planting diagram any plants that would, and there was any notice of a plant to grow on it.
We can let the architect respond to that. This could be purely diagrammatic, or we could actually revisit the landscape plan. Was the landscape plan updated? I don't think so. So
Okay, maybe
we can-
that's why.
yeah, we can make that a condition if we would like to as well. Commission concern number 5, consider adding trees on the southern yard and near the western portion of Lot 26 in order to provide landscape screening from Carter Avenue. So we can see the addition of Coast Live Oaks, 2 in this location, 2 here, and also on Lot 26, which is added as a condition of approval.
Are Coast Live Oaks the protected species that you
Yes.
have? Yeah.
Well, okay.
So staff found that the design is in compliance with the Stone Gate design guidelines specific to the custom architectural design, which responds to site conditions. The mass and bulk have been reduced. The single-story elements provide transitions to 2-story volumes. The vertically proportioned and balanced window configurations, the use of earth tone colors, and materials that are durable and low maintenance, and a landscape plan that reduces visual impact from surrounding buildings and neighborhoods. The alternatives before the commission this evening are to approve the application, approve it with modifications, deny or continue the project, providing further direction to both staff and the applicant. Staff is recommending that the Planning Commission take the following actions pursuant to Resolution 19-10 and the conditions of approval attached to approve the application for hillside development permit and conditional use permit.
Okay, does the applicant have a PowerPoint as well?
He does.
Okay, why don't we do that one first, and then we can do questions all together.
Don't want to do that.
Are you sure?
Good evening, Chair Hutt and Commissioners. Thank you again for giving us an opportunity to present this project this evening. As Vince gave such a thorough presentation, we'll just touch upon some key items and then we'll be available for any questions. One of the largest things we did do was move the house forward 5 feet. And reality, now this is our 20-foot setback, but in reality, only this mass goes into the 25-foot, original 25-foot setback, with the porch encroaching into the setback, which is allowable under the current conditions as well. So I feel the moving it forward doesn't really impact the street scene as much. It's only a small one-story mass that goes into that. It did allow us to increase the rear yard and push the house away from Carter and minimizing its appearance. As you saw, we did look at the second story, eliminated this loft upstairs and reduced and reconfigured the stair, and did some reconfiguring of the form. So the overall mass did reduce. One thing this plan doesn't really show is we did increase the one-story forms on the ground floor, so it helps to minimize the overall mass. As you can see here, now we start seeing the house step down on the slope, eliminated that second-story mass there, and reconfigured this, so it changed slightly. But I think it creates a much more open and comfortable form for the hill. Here, we're showing again how on the ground floor, this being our original plan, we did extend that ground floor element, brought it down to the pad, and also moved the parlor to this side, creating another one-story element for giving us the opportunity to reduce the mass up above. So really reduce this whole element from the original elevation. This again was just the introduction of the trellis. We did look at the landscape plans. It's not showing, but we can definitely coordinate with the landscape architect to introduce vine pockets at the base of each of these columns to allow for vines, which I think vines would be a nice element to this and helps to kind of tie the house more into the landscape if we can have some bougainvillea or something on those trellises.
We like wisteria in this town.
Or wisteria. Wisteria would be great.
If you do wisteria, you're gonna need to make the trellis out of steel.
It gets heavy.
Yeah, it's invasive. Yeah.
As long as it doesn't grow as large as that huge one.
Yeah.
And then this is just showing, as mentioned, the introduction of these oaks on the site. So we introduced another one. So this starts to create a barrier as you're going on Carter. And our client was open to introducing 2 new trees on lot 26. That would be introduced when that lot comes in, but we'll coordinate with them that they know this is part of the wish from the commissioners, and that'll help as you're coming up. You'll start seeing the trees block the house, so really you have very few views of the house along Carter. Just a quick reminder on the colors. We did look at traditional craftsmen and chose a color story that's very reminiscent of homes in Sierra Madre and Pasadena. Very earth tone colors with some accents on the windows. Materials, we did decide to keep the stone. We like the idea of the stone base. It helps to ground the house onto the site. And we've only used it on bases and some of the columns. Let's see some more. And then we have these views. This would be from Baldwin. These don't show the proposed trees. We wanted to be able to show the architecture, but in reality, once this would have, I believe, 2 trees here, which will block that together with the lot 26 trees. So that will start to soften the view, as well as this one will have another oak here. But it starts showing how the house starts to fit into its site. This starts showing how the house is sloping, it's kind of stepping down onto the site into the lower pad. And then this view from Baldwin Court, just how the house is sitting nicely on its site. And that's all we have. I think with your suggestions, I think the house fits nicer into the site, which is an important site, a very key site. So if you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer any.
Okay, do we have questions for staff or the applicant? Okay, sounds like we're good. Who would like to lead us off? Peg?
I like it.
Good.
Yeah, I think it sits nicely on the property, and, well, when the trees grow up, it'll be virtually invisible, at least from Carter. So,
Yeah, it's a big improvement. I was hoping they were gonna take that same look and maybe taper the house both ways, but tapering it one way accented the part that we liked the best, which was the sunken living room area, so, very nice.
I think that they really did a good job of listening to what we were hoping for and returned a much better product. So I certainly am thankful for that. Really created some nice step-ups so that it wasn't all on that second story, just a big box. It's no longer the great big box that it was before. So really appreciate the time and effort that went into it.
So I'm very appreciative of the before and after, because sometimes these projects don't return to us, like the next one, for quite a while. And it's hard for me to remember what was it that we talked about, way back when. And so this document, where you itemized what our concerns were and then what the response was, and then the PowerPoint that shows the before and after, is very helpful and it allows us to make our decisions much easier. We're not scratching and going back and forth. I think the addition of the trellis is excellent because it's going to break up that big face, and I think it's something that you can use in other projects to make the house blend in with the natural surroundings, and it cools the house. It makes for a nice space, and it softens the look. The addition of the trees is excellent. I think it's going to, along with the moving the house towards Baldwin Court, I think it'll allow, when people come up Carter, they're only going to see the very top, 25% of the house, and they're not going to be as impacted by, what is that thing up there? So I think it's between the trellis and the trees, you've done a lot to, modify what would be other people's initial concerns at how the house presents itself from the street. So I have no problems. Thank you.
I didn't have the benefit of seeing the first go-around, so I kind of looked at it with fresh eyes as if this came, this was the first iteration, and kind of looking at it. And, I kind of put my architect's hat on and was trying to nitpick and trying to find problems with it. And, after studying it for a little bit, I looked and I go, it actually is a really nice composition. Like, compliments to you guys, because
Yeah, it's all our doing.
the comments you had, and then kind of reflected in what you guys did. So, I think the composition is great, and it really presents itself as this long bar rather than sort of a squat piece right in the middle of the property, which is great. I love the color story, and something we don't sort of compliment often because we're looking at sort of the bulk and the mass and how it's sited is, I really appreciated some of the details that are in here, and it may just be the renderings, but I think it's something that will be executed as part of the project. But the change in sort of the shingles to sort of the board and batten at the top, and then changing colors there, the outriggers, even the trim on the windows. If you looked really closely, you'd see that it's like tapered, and it's actually a nice little detail. Like I appreciated that. So from the micro all the way to the macro, I think it's working really well. And like if I saw this for the first time, I'd have very little changes. So I think it turned out really nice. So I can fully support it. I think will be a great project when it's built, especially on that corner. As you start up into the development, I think it's an important piece to kind of set the tone, and I think this turned out really nice. So kudos.
Okay, I concur with my fellow commissioners. I'm still not a fan of the rock facade, but at least it's in the right place. We'll talk about that more in the next one. So I think it really works. I think especially the removing the second story element on the southwest and the pushing out of what used to be the parlor, now the home office or bedroom, and then lowering that down really helps. I think it really helps break it up and makes it flow more with the contours of the land. One suggestion I do have is I really like the addition of the trees, but I would suggest not using coast live oaks. I would do Engelmann oaks, at least for the majority of them, because they're a little less dense, and so you get more sort of peekaboo views through the trees. Also, you've got some coast oaks there now, and so it'll have variation. If you just have all coast oaks, especially with that close, you'll start to get a hedgy kind of feel, and I don't think you really want that. So I think that would be an improvement there, but it would still provide you the visual screen that you're after. But with that change, I can very much support the project. So thank you very much. Well, it sounds like we have a consensus. Do somebody like to make a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Do we want to include those two as conditions? The install vine pockets and also switching off to the end of the house.
Yeah, are you guys okay with that? Yeah, then I think so.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion. What?
Public comment?
You know, that's a good point. Wait, we are going to reopen the public hearing. Is there anyone in the public who would like to address us on this?
Yes, thank you. Thank you all for allowing me to stand up for a moment. My name is Matt Buckles. I live within 500 feet of the property. I hadn't seen the design that you guys had presented earlier or previously, so this is my first look at it. And I think it is a good piece of architecture. It looks nice, and I still think it's too big. I think the house is too big. I think all the houses up there are too big, frankly, for the sites, the size of the site pads. But that is the one site that has the most flat pad to construct that size of house on. So, you know, I think that's where we're at. That at least we got the right site. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else like to comment? I will now close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission. Would somebody like to make a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion with conditions that's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Next, we will move on to Hillside Development Permit 1520 and Conditional Use Permit 1521.
And if you can give me a moment to swap PowerPoints.
Okay.
So we have a hillside development application and a conditional use permit for 1 Nathaniel Terrace, Lot 9. This was last submitted back in 2015. I don't believe the commission's ever seen this one before. And so it's our first look at this project. So the application is to construct a 2-story, 3,956 square foot single-family residence. It does require a hillside development permit and a conditional use permit, as most of the other projects in the Stonegate development. Lot 9 is shown in red. at the intersection of Nathaniel Terrace and Baldwin Court. Some images or views, photographic views of the pad and the property. This is looking north from Baldwin Court. Nathaniel Terrace would be heading to the west or left. Viewing towards Nathaniel Terrace as that climbs up the hill, and we are on Baldwin Court. So as you can see, the pad is stepped. There's two parts to this. Some of the flat pads, yes.
Has there been erosion since that picture was taken? Because my impression when I walked around up there was that this berm went up and then there was a much more of a dip in there. So if I was back in here, I was, you know, way down low.
It's possible that that has occurred. We can almost see that natural topography is draining that direction, so that probably has occurred over time. I'm not sure how old these photographs are.
Okay.
So the project proposal is to, as I mentioned, two-story building, attached two-car garage, 3,956 square feet. The building is attempting to respond to the sloped lot utilizing the split pad. The building footprint is also closely wedded to the graded existing pad, and the proposal does meet all requirements of the zoning code. So the design features of the building is somewhat of a contemporary style house with references to both craftsman and mid-century architectural styles. There's substantial modulation of both the wall planes and roof design. And the materials consist of stucco walls, cultured stone, veneer, and asphalt shingle roof. They're utilizing earth tone colors, and they're utilizing a water-efficient landscape. Photo montage of the building within the setting of the tract. As mentioned, the project complies with all zoning requirements: lot size, lot coverage, building height, gross floor area, setbacks, and parking. This is a conceptual site plan showing the entirety of Lot 9 with the house. There's also, as referenced, this is an existing retaining wall, block wall here. This is the landscape plan. The conceptual first plan, which incorporates a basement area in this location.
And that, just to be clear, that is not included in the square footage, right?
That is not included in the square footage. So this,
why does the basement not count if it's on the same level as the bedroom?
In section, we'll see where it is fully subterranean at this location.
Okay.
So also on the first floor, so we do have a living room, a recreation room, and a bedroom, entry hall, powder room, laundry, stairs actually, and there is an elevator in this plan. Stairs ascend upward to the second floor. This second floor has the kitchen, dining room, and family room in this location, and 3 bedrooms. And it does meet grade along here. So this is a 1-story element, and the basement is below. Roof plan, 3 and 12 pitch throughout, with the exception of 2 flat roofed areas. The building elevations, front elevation, garage entry, rear elevation, showing grade. And you can see the stepped pad configuration where we have natural grade here and natural grade up here. And I'll get into the design concerns in a few more slides here. Sections. There's that bedroom you referenced here. Color and material board, we can go ahead and pass that around. Cultured stone, asphalt shingle roof, earth tone paint colors. Neighborhood analysis, which was conducted within a 500-foot radius, and it did actually exclude the properties on the Stonegate property. So the house size, again, as reference, is 3,956 square feet. The average 1/3 of the homes in the neighborhood are 3,554 square feet. The median was 2,412. And as the top 1/3, the house is 402 square feet larger than the top 1/3. So we do have some comments, staff comments regarding the design. We felt that it did not comply with the Stonegate design guidelines, specifically the guideline C-1.3, that it's a cookie cutter or duplicative designs. The guidelines state that those are inappropriate, and the facades visible from the public right-of-way should be customized to the individual house, lot, and architecture. So some comments from staff. We were asking the applicant to restudy or improve the transition and proportions of the stone veneer surround around that garage door. To restudy, improve the transition of the first story gable roof as it meets the stone veneer vertical portal projection right there. Restudy, improve the transition between the second story shed roof and the primary cross gable. And we're talking about that intersection. Also consider reducing the prominence of the street-facing garage, especially since the property is located at a visually prominent intersection. Some additional overall considerations, possibly utilize a lighter color palette overall to visually lighten the house. We studied the design of the control joints on the stucco walls. They're on the black and white elevations. You can see both horizontal and vertical control joints at various locations on the elevations. Consider replacing the cultured stone veneer with a more visually interesting material such as brick, natural stone, architectural panels, or other material. Consider a more visually interesting roof material. This is asphalt shingle, possibly standing seam metal roof would look more appropriate for a more contemporary design. And also to restudy, refine the design of the chimneys for a more articulated, customized appearance. Currently, they appear in two locations. They're very somewhat heavy, as we can see in those two elevations. So I've gone through the overall design concerns. The alternatives before the commission this evening is to approve the application, hillside development permit and conditional use permit, approve with modifications, deny the project stating the findings that cannot be made, and the basis for rejecting those findings, or continue the project and provide staff with direction. Staff is recommending that the Planning Commission continue the application for hillside development permit and conditional use permit to refine the project design to more comply with comply more strongly with the Stonegate design guidelines. And that concludes my presentation. The applicant does have a presentation as well, if you wish to present that.
Yeah, why don't we get that one and then we'll do the questions and then we'll do public hearing.
Clicker C.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Hutt and Commissioners. Hello again. I'm here to introduce our project on Lot 9. This is an interesting site. It's actually a step pad lot. The first pad by the corner is kind of this almost rectilinear site. Then there's a 10-foot grade change from here to this little pad. And there's a smaller pad here. Then it goes up the slope as well. So as we looked at this and looking how we can situate a house here and make it as straightforward as possible without doing too much grading into the site, we did locate the main house on the first pad and built it into the slope, allowing the second floor of the house to then open up onto the yard and the yard parcel here, which was the second pad. And then there's a small retaining with the rest of the slope going up. So as you see on the plan, we located the garage away from the corner. We felt that because of the situation of the corner lot, this was the best place to locate the garage and try to tuck it in as much as possible from view. This set back about 5'6" from the line of the front of the house. So we try to push it back and still work with the plan above. This house is interesting as well in terms of plan, that we do have a living room and recreation room on the ground floor and a small bedroom. But then upstairs, as you go up, we did introduce kind of the dining family room space that would then allow it to open up to the backyard, which is on the second level grade. There we also have located the 3 bedrooms on the second floor. This starts to show the section of the house. This is going from Nathaniel to up the slope. So you start seeing, this is cutting through the living, recreation room, bedroom, and up the slope with the family room up above. This one is going, it's a cross section going from Baldwin Court across to the adjacent lot. So that corner in the back does become a basement because of, really is captured on both sides by the existing grade. The architecture, we looked at this as just a contemporary ranch house. We wanted to keep this much more simple and clean in terms of detail. We use larger expanses of glass in the corners, simpler forms. We introduced stone elements to help to articulate the facade. We do have a lot of movement in the elevation, and we wanted to accentuate some of that with stone massing. Right now we are proposing kind of a stacked stone for these forms. we do have two flat areas on our roof. The reason we're doing that is in order to keep the main mass of the roof within our building envelope. We are utilizing a main flat roof in the center of the house, and that allows us to still create some gable forms on a perimeter. And we're also utilizing this form, which is also a flat roof, and it starts to tie into the walls and forms that we introduced in the front of the house to help us with the roof junctures, per se. We wanted to keep some roof forms here, and this helps to capture a connection with an opposing gable there. This starts to show as well, this is where that basement is located. So it's captured within this existing grade. And on the Baldwin Court side, we start seeing the house step up to the second level. So you start seeing this is where it opens up to your rear yard. Down here, you do have a small sunken courtyard off the rec room, and then a step wall leading up to the rear yard. This is the view, really looking at it almost from lot 25, possibly a little further forward. You start seeing the corner, you start seeing the house. We tried to have a one-story element in the corner, then start to step up towards the second-story masses. And these are some of the views you saw before. And I think that's it. I'm definitely here for any questions or comments.
We also have a sketch up if you wanted to look at various views of the building. We can rotate.
Okay, do you guys want to do the sketch up first, or do you have questions?
Just a quick question. Is this a developer house, or is there a client?
There is a client. He has this 2 lots. I believe this one might be up for development, and the next one I believe will be for
Personal.
themselves.
Okay.
So, you have your post office boxes on the corner.
I believe that's part of the existing site. Unfortunately, that was there before we came along.
Yeah, there's 4 sumpstone walls, one at a right angle one at the north end, as a transition between the lot and the lot above it, lot maybe 1 or whatever it is. That
You're
one.
saying over here?
There's the one here, there's this, and then there's the one that parallels this line back up there.
Oh, further up?
Which has a swale and a drain at it.
Yes, those are actually existing. I don't know how much we can play with those. I think some, see if we have a view of that. Yeah. There's, I guess, one further down here, and you're saying there's one here as well, I believe, somewhere around here where the slope starts to
Right.
change.
I mean, if this is the house that everyone's going to see as they enter your area, they seem to,
It does interrupt the flow of the corner. I agree with you. I don't know how much, if we can change that, I would be willing to do that, work with landscape and civil to change that. That was part of the original site, the way it was graded.
Can you go to the landscape plan, just because it shows the whole site?
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know if and this is going to be a dumb question, but basically where you've developed the house, was there any opportunity or thought on the west side to push it further up so it cascaded up
This-
the site? Like,
this
or is
part?
that all category 5 and
It
unbuilt?
is a steeper slope, so we were trying to stay away from that. This is where the slope is.
And there's also that existing retaining wall
There's
right
a
there.
stone wall that goes across here with a gully behind it.
Is
for
there, is
drainage.
there room
So
above?
that,
Up here,
what, is that flat or is there slope?
there's a flat portion up here, but the grade change between here and here is about
Severe.
18 feet.
Mm-hmm.
Could you put a second unit there? Take some of the mass out of here?
Let's see if there's enough space there.
Don't say ADU. But I thought about a place for a trellis and a hot tub.
Oh, definitely.
Well, my thinking was almost how you treated the ground level where you pushed the basement and the garage back into part of the hillside there. Like, if you had the same opportunity on this level to push the mass back, not completely into the hill, but, knowing that you'd have to obviously, and I know that probably goes to, like, you were trying to minimize grading, but you're already digging into it on the ground level, so that was my question.
We are digging in here, correct. I think our basement is about here. And then the second floor is here. I mean, we were concerned, we had wanted to push out an arm of the house.
But there's an
Yes.
underground pipe underneath there, correct? There's a drainage pipe.
I believe there might be.
Yeah.
So,
We can
a
just block
normal
it off.
idea would be to kind of push this out and try to have it reach out into the site and interact better with it. Concern, we were starting to do a lot of grading. This is already, we're grading to this point. This is starting to interfere with a higher slope, so we would have either more retaining wall or more grading involved. So that's why the house became a more compact footprint.
Right.
Mhm.
I think one thing to think about, though, on the grading aspect is that these are graded pads. I mean, this isn't natural slope.
Yeah.
And so I think we really want to more think about, fitting into the overall slope, the overall movement of the land, as opposed to these pads and slopes that have been cut into it already. So I don't have as much issue with regrading places that are already graded as if we were changing natural slope.
Yeah. Okay.
I have an issue with the roof that, give the roof plan.
I should have it.
Yeah, those big flat areas are inconsistent with the total design. It sort of, D-2.1 says the roof should be given the treatment equal to the rest of the exterior, and it kind of falls apart in those flat areas. And
It's something we did see as a challenge for ourselves, just because we were looking at keeping a compact footprint, so it became a very solid form. So if we tried to roof it completely following the same roof, we would surpass our building envelope. It's something we can definitely study and see how we can reconfigure that roof.
well, I like some of the things you're doing with the house. I like the sort of modern look and the glass and some of the articulation, and some of the roof slopes are working nicely. Maybe if you put like a flat roof deck up there with a garden space, you could sort of reconfigure some of that roof and use the flat spaces that happen naturally. Good.
We can definitely study that.
And, or even, square those both up so one's not an L, and say it's, cow wall skylight, and at least it has a reason. So yeah, I don't know. And I kind of like the dark glass and the dark window frames and the two kinds of stucco and the stucco dividers. what do they call them?
The screen,
Yeah,
or reglets, I should say.
yeah. And I like a lot of that, but it's not quite a strong enough statement if you're going that direction. It has some vague sort of modern Japanese house sort of things going on, I think, personally.
Mm.
If you went more
I
that
could see
direction,
that.
maybe. Do you see that in that? Or?
Mm-hmm, I do.
So,
Can I ask a general question? And forgive me if this seems off, but are we was this recently designed and we're seeing it, or is this a project that was like formulated a while back and we're just seeing it now? Like
2015, wasn't it?
This was 2015.
so what we're seeing here was designed back then, and you guys have
The majority of it was, I think we did a slight update just
Recently?
to resubmit.
Okay.
But-
Well, that helps, because, all right.
So
Okay. No,
I want to follow up the private space for this house, since it's on a public street on two sides, is only back up into the hillside. So you did put a yard here, but it was interesting that if you wanted a deck or a place for people to, look at, what's around them without being seen and without, having any interaction with anyone else, it would seem like it would be at this back end of the house. Now, you had to put in another retaining wall, and I think 2 retaining walls at one point, correct?
Well, I think
So
we have
step
them,
it down from the sumpstone wall?
yes, I think there's a step here. I
But
believe.
it occurred to me that there's no, except for this area here, I don't know how much you took advantage of their private area that the lot gives you.
I mean, you're correct in that this is kind of the rear yard and really only flat area. We do have the sunken garden here, which is slightly protected by a wall from Baldwin Court.
You couldn't use the top,
That could definitely be
Like,
developed
if you consider,
later.
if even the stairs, just access up to that,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, geez, that's a huge
I mean, that could
banquet
definitely
back there.
be
sort of
made a
have to walk
great
up the
lookout
street,
point,
don't you?
definitely.
No, you can't walk from the site if there
Well,
was
it's pretty
access?
steep. There's a ridge line.
Like
that
30
comes
feet or something?
down and curves around, and the house does seem to follow some of that ridge.
So you couldn't get up there?
Well, you could get up there. You could put stairs in there.
You would have to do stairs to make it comfortable.
But you're only, but I don't know.
I mean, we didn't develop that. It developed it as something maybe the future homeowners could develop something there if they want, either like a pergola, a little just patio, sitting area, viewing point. Right now, it's kept pretty natural.
How large is that basement?
In terms of square feet,
Yeah.
it is big.
Tom's gonna figure it out electronically.
Yeah, it's like
Way bigger than the garage.
23 on the eastern wall by. Looks like that's 29. I mean that's
that's
a big,
probably about
It's a big room.
5 to 600, 500 square feet.
Yeah, and that's not counted in your
700.
It's not counted.
3,700, because it doesn't have a window to the outside, so it's a
Right,
basement.
it's really just storage. There's real no livable use in there, pretty much.
better place to put cars.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm okay with the fact that you took advantage of some subterranean space, so, but it's just, it adds to the size of the house.
It does.
Okay, any other questions for staff or applicant? Okay, thank you very much. We will
Thank you.
open the public hearing and See if we have any comments
Look at this, this is great.
from our esteemed former colleague.
Hi, my name is Matt Buckles. I live within 500 feet of this property. Okay, now this one's too big. This one's too big. It's a compact footprint, and you're locating it in the flat pad area that's buildable, but it's just too big. If you can go to rendering, can somebody change it to the rendering? You? Thanks. Yeah, the perspective, a little bit further back. Yeah, that one there. So, what's the ceiling height on the second floor and first floor?
Say, I believe 9 and 9.
9? Because those sliding glass doors on the second floor of that balcony look like they're 12 foot high. And it looks like you're trying to mask the volume, the tall volume with a shallow roof slope. And it just feels like the whole volume of the second floor and the ground floor needs to come down. But like I say, you're kind of stuck with it located on that site, or on that portion of the site. And then how much turf area is on the ground floor? It looks like there's a ton of paving.
On the ground floor?
Yeah, on the exterior.
I don't know if we have the exact calculations. Well, overall permeable paving is 620 square feet.
Yeah, and how much turf?
Did
you see in the landscape plan?
I don't have that as a calculated element.
Oh. Did I see the floor plan view of the landscaping? Yeah, that one. I see all paving.
Well, all this is landscape.
Well, yeah, but that's the sloped,
Then we have pathways here which are hardscape, either permeable and permeable paving. We have
I think
courtyard.
there's a gray lawn there too.
it's a gray lawn.
That
Oh, it says lawn?
it says lawn is gray.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so
Okay, because I was wondering if this was
It's lawn
meeting
bowling.
the
bowling.
standards of landscaped area for the lot, or turf area, actual green space.
Well, remember, this other half is all green,
Yeah, that's all natural up there.
so
Yeah.
that,
Untouched.
and that counts,
That
Yeah,
counts.
oh,
right?
and also keep in mind that it has to go through the water efficient landscape ordinance. So
okay,
lawns may go away
yeah.
when they start doing all those calculations.
Well, that's my comments. If you can bring down the volume, bring down the height.
I mean, right now it is 9 and 9 in terms of layout.
Yeah, okay. Well, I don't know. The rendering just looked like it was a 12-foot height, sliding glass doors on the second floor. So,
Yeah, you're right, they look very lean and tall.
yeah, yeah. So thank you much.
Thank you.
Come often.
Would anybody else in the public like to comment? Okay, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission. Would you like to start?
Yeah, I want to start, yeah. You know, I don't want to lambaste this thing too much, but I don't think this is close. Like, this one goes back to, I don't remember which one it was, but there was one where the first shot that we saw was, it just screamed, it didn't have an identity. And you were still figuring out whether it's really modern or if it's some mid-century or if it's contemporary. Like, this thing is wearing a lot of hats. And I just, like on my note right here, it has no spirit or identity of what it is, you know, like, and so then I was thinking, you know, well, what could it be, you know, or what would be a good approach? You know, one thing that came right to my mind was, I think going away from the modern on this particular site would maybe help you free up some of, because what's working against you here is the site's compact. It's really a square, I mean, for the most part. You know, if we can't push into the hill up there, you're basically looking at a sheet of paper that you're building on, right? So in a modern house or you know, mid-century, modern, whatever, those really become elegant and beautiful when you're able to stretch them out, kind of, you know, like what you did on the lot way at the top. I mean, that's a beautiful house, but that lot also allowed you to kind of stretch the house and create these narrow profiles, right? So you can really read the roofs and stuff. Here, it's really about the mass, you know, that you're reading as it goes up. You know, you don't really, you're arresting all the views to basically like this pillar right on the middle of the sheet of paper. So, you know, part of what may be causing you heartburn is like if we're trying to stay in this contemporary track or modern track, I don't know if that's, I think it's doing you a disservice here. But you need to figure out what it's going to be. You know, one approach I thought kind of lends itself stylistically to kind of moving your views sort of up is like sort of a modern take on a like a prairie style, you know, house. Because what happens with that is you have a base, but the bases are usually elongated with the material so that you read kind of the skinny part on the second level. So it kind of forces you to read it in these slices as you're moving up, you know. And then I think like these roof, like the gate, there's just a cacophony of roofs going on here, but you've already heard my spiel on the flat roofs. I just think, you know, it's easy for us to design those and kind of say, oh, they're going to work great and drain water, and stuff gets mucked up there, and it's just like, I mean, I just tell clients like I don't design like pools on the third level. Like it's just bad. Like, you know, we can design it and walk away and say it's going to be fine, but I don't like those things. I think something that where the roofs were instead of gables were like hips, you know, and shallow pitches, like that's going to help you, because on a hip roof you're going to read the edges flat, right? Because they're not reading the peaks of the eaves or the rakes going up, right? So like exactly what Matt brought up, you know, like, yeah, the plates at the low ends, you know, the double top plate, like that's probably 9 feet, right? But what's happening is as it rises, and you may not be vaulting those spaces, you may just have a 9-foot lid, but you've got another 3 or 4 feet from that plate to the ridge, right? And on the front, right above the garage, you're reading that, like you're reading all of that mass, right? So if you cut that to some sort of hip or low profile, it's actually gonna read like a flat roof, you know, around, which would probably help push it, you know, better, because you're gonna read, there's gonna be less of it. Even though all of it's still there, you know, the height, whatever, I think you can have a 9-foot plate. I don't think that's the issue. I think you're just reading more of the mass. Like here, you want to try to chop that down as much as you can, you know. But I would sacrifice the roof height and not the height in the spaces, you know. I think the stone stuff is like weird. I don't get it. Like there's that portal that you walk through when you come out of the garage, and it's like a stone wall with a hole in it. Like it's just not very elegant. Like it's just kind of pieces, you know. Like it reminds me like what was in the write-up. I mean, it feels like a tract home where they had a lot of extra stone, you know, and they just started putting it everywhere. Like it didn't make sense. And the renderings aren't helping because your stone pattern is duplicating too quick, so it looks splotchy, which is a rendering thing. But that's why I asked you, like, when were these done? Because it didn't look like these were revisited recently. But and I just think it doesn't have any identity. I think the hip gable material changes are odd. Like you've got a situation at the top of the garage where it's stucco around these huge sliders. So there's very little solid material, and there's mostly window, right, or sliders or whatever those are. And then the mass steps back into the house, which seemed like a perfect place for a material change, but it's just the same stucco. So it's, and then you've got like salmon colored stucco and then the beige stucco. Like, it doesn't seem very thoughtful or thought out in that regard. You've got shed roofs, then you've got parcel, like you've got on the side, that lower box is not even a gable, it's an asymmetric gable because it kind of bends short and then long. And so, anyway, I can go on and on, but it seems heavy-handed, and just, you might want to think about that single-story form. Like, this may be an opportunity where if you want to draw more attention to that piece, like maybe that's the one piece that breaks off the orthogonal and kind of turns like on that corner. And so suddenly what that does is, that seems like, oh, well, why would you do that? But what it does is it sets that piece off of the rest of the grid. And so you're going to read that piece, your eyes are going to draw to that rather than sort of this stacked, like weird thing happening. And then that gives you a reason to kind of treat that a little separate, and disengage it a little bit from the house. So I don't know, but right now it's the mass is too much, and it's kind of like just a big wedding cake right in the middle of this lot. So it's a challenge because I don't know, I mean, you kind of have that area to work with. Seems like there's some odd functional choices too, like on the second floor, you crammed the four, I don't know how many bedrooms, is it three bedrooms, but they're kind of crammed into that west mass area, right? It's just like really, and downstairs you put one bedroom, but then you use like the rec room for like prime sort of window, like on that corner. You could have easily put that, the basement could have become the rec space, game area, rec, whatever, and then you could have utilized that for, maybe another bedroom, which would have allowed you on the top floor to kind of stretch those two out or something. It didn't seem as resolved as some of your other plans, where like the bedrooms made sense, and they kind of worked, like this. You're shoehorning a lot into like your little area. So I personally think this needs a lot of work. So I don't know. I don't think it's like, oh, and I know you guys can get there because we've seen, like, I mean, the recent projects that I've come across, like, it's an iterative process, but I don't think I don't think it's close, in my opinion, but anyway.
So, if we go back to the point that this is the lot that everyone's going to see as they enter, I agree that what we're seeing is not quite ready for prime time. I agree that staff has some concerns, and I think they can be addressed, but I think that the presentation of the entire house may, in its reworking, may address their concerns, so I don't have to go through those one at a time, because I think you'll probably end up with a redesign that'll answer a lot of those. This is why I'm not the architect here, I'm just the old safety guy. This is why we need architects here. The concept of having that first floor facing one way and the second floor facing another way. Remember, you have that ridge that comes down behind the house. And to have the house follow that ridge line and the curve of the earth, I think would be very impressive. So that the second floor does not absolutely line up in a box shape with the first floor. The first floor is more of a pedestal on which the second floor is placed. And that might allow you to also to push the second floor back. You have some space behind. I'm okay with you cutting in and putting that basement in there, right? So people are screaming for square footage, and it's not, I'd rather have it there than a lot of other places. But I think that maybe on the second floor, you can even go into closer to the hill, so it follows the contour of the lot. The entry needs to improve. The existing entry looks like you're going into a cave, and I'm not sure that that's what you want everybody to perceive as they see the house. I think in this day and age, for whatever reason, people want to have an entry that is more light, airy, and something that they can take a picture in front of and send it to all their friends on Christmas. So I'm not sure this is that entry. Some of my questions were, the lot behind it, which I think is number 1 or whatever, the one going up Nathaniel Court. How's that going to look down into the windows? Because you've put all your bedroom on that uphill side of your structure, so that whoever's going to be on the next one up is going to look down into the bedrooms, and I'm not sure that that may cause us to ask you about that later. So I think I will reiterate that we've seen impressive work in the past, so I have no doubt that you can rise to the occasion. I think if this is going to be a statement, it should be a good statement. I agree that this one tends to be a little more cookie cutter than it needs to be, and that you should take a chance and spread your wings on this, and if you can figure out some cool way to incorporate that top half of that lot, because you're only using half that lot, that'd be cool. So anyway, those are the not architect ideas.
Well, I'll go, I guess. Yeah, I was looking at it more from what the lot next door would be seeing when that house was built there, and the enjoyment of the property, as we have to make a finding for all these design review, and that wall that upper level above the garage creates needs to be reconfigured. All the suggestions sound good, to rotate it, do something, get it out of the way. Frankly, I don't know what lot 8's going to look like, but I think if I lived there, I wouldn't like to be looking along that long wall. And there's also something about breaking that up, even if it stayed. Just turning it would probably break that up, because we've had issues where someone wants to build an extension, and it's a huge house, and then the neighbor has this giant wall going across here. That needs to be broken up. I like the east elevation, but it needs to be reworked big time.
Okay. I think all these comments are good. One of the thoughts I had about style and massing, I think an Italian villa has that kind of massing with a low sloped roof. Maybe that style might work too. I don't know. But what do you think, Manish? Does an Italian villa? Because aren't they more boxy with like an atrium thing?
Yeah. My only concern with that style is it tends to want to stack.
Be too boxy?
It tends to but I mean if you look at down the Amalfi Coast, you'll see villas that stagger, kind of stagger up, I could see that.
Okay, and the other comment I had was the elevator's kind of cool, but if I had an elevator on the presumption that somebody didn't want to or couldn't walk everywhere, I would certainly have it accessing the bedrooms and the family room and the essential spots in the house, whereas this plan doesn't allow that, and so.
I looked at the landscape plan that has that whole other lot and kept wondering why it is that they put somebody else's lot onto theirs, because it's so disjointed. It's just this great, beautiful place. I think to Chair Hutt's comments, grading on artificially graded lots, I have zero heartache about that at all. Grade away. I think that, again, we've, to maximize space, we've come up with a square box. I mean, maybe the garage is set back 5 feet, but it's a box. It's just a great big box. I think that the second story massing, the only way that you're gonna get some break in that is to push that further back, keep grading up the hill so that you naturally follow the curves. I think this is an amazing opportunity of a lot for you to really show your amazing design skills and incorporate the flow of the land here. Get creative, figure out how to do that. Move that second story so that there's a nice step up and it's already pushing further back, and then take another step up. There's plenty of hill behind it, there's plenty of lot back there. Use it. I just don't think I think you'll be challenged to have the amount of square footage you're looking for not look like a box if you don't increase the diaphragm of the house. It's gonna stay a box. So that would be my biggest encouragement. I think that, again, look at the Stonegate final design guidelines. There's a lot of things that I think are not there. The stone, I know we're gonna hear about the stone in just a minute, but certainly it creates, one of the things is avoid highly contrasting materials. Brown stone, bright windows. I mean, that is an amazing contrast. I think that makes the garage look 5 times bigger than it is and makes it look like it's on the edge. Push that back. You've got that basement space there. When you get creative on moving up to the top of that other lot, maybe you'll get some space there for a basement. Push the garage back. Push that into the basement and get another basement on the next set as you keep moving up the hill. I think that this is such a neat lot that you really have a tableau here to take a fresh cut at this, an updated cut at this, and really bring us back something that shows the craft that we've seen from you and really leverages the land. That's the biggest, if there's one thing you take away from the Stonegate guidelines, the design guidelines, it's to leverage the lay of the land. And man, this is a neat lot to do something with that.
And your comment reminds me of a project, I don't even know if it ever got built, but do you remember up in the canyon? And it was a series of cubes that were rotated.
Right, yeah,
and
yeah,
it
yeah.
stacked,
Back
and
up.
it went up probably 4 levels.
Yeah, what
Do you
happened to
remember
that?
Too expensive to do.
Too expensive.
Okay,
No.
well, ignore that.
No,
part.
don't.
We should definitely look at that. No, but from a design standpoint, cost withstanding, I think that was an interesting approach to something where basically it went like that, and they cascaded a series of boxes, cubes rotated up the hill. I thought, anyway, that kind of.
I think that we will be advocates of, and I'm speaking for everybody here, and let me speak for myself. I would be an advocate of a plan that got cut into that grading to get us a much less massive, heavy upfront postage stamp, so that you do some neat levels as you build up that hill.
I think the other thing, just echoing on that, is you've sought to create private space because you're on a corner, and that's always a problem on corner lots. And so you want to sort of recreate this backyard element so you can have some privacy. But the place to do that is up the lot. And so I think, when we talk about architectural style, I think, I think that's a secondary concern to first siting and getting it to fit on the land, the massing. And then you can worry about architectural style and design of those concepts. And I think when you think about how this fits into the site, you have to back up even a little more and think about how this piece fits into the neighborhood. And that's to Bob's point. When you drive up Baldwin, you're going to turn and you're going to see this house. This is going to be the house that you see. I mean, yeah, the one we just approved is going to be more visible from Carter, but not when you go into into the development. That's gonna be off to the side, right? And so what you have is you've created this private space on the east, which sort of shields that side of it. And then your eye is drawn to the west, and there's this giant garage. And so the main feature that your eye sees is giant garage. And that's not a good look, especially with the rock. And then you look at the house and you see, wow, here's a 2-story box that's way too big for where it is. And it's not too big for the lot. It's too big for that little pad down there. And I totally agree that it's too big looking, but I don't think it's too big for the lot. And I think you need to exploit the lot. And one thing you should do, I think, is get rid of the concept of private space on the east and trying to hide the house. Don't hide the house. Be happy about the house. Think of it sort of like, if you think of your whole neighborhood, that this is sort of the commercial center. And just as the little downtown is more interactive with the street, and then when you get farther out, people are more reclusive and have bigger setbacks, this house should interact with the street. It should interact with the corner. If you drive up Baldwin, you'll see some houses in town that have these big stairways that come right down the corner, right? And welcome you in. And then you could have like a wraparound porch that is welcoming and doesn't hide the house, but says, here's the center house in this whole One Carter development, or Stonegate, or whatever we're calling it nowadays. And I think that sort of interactive element is a much better way of dealing with it rather than trying to hide it, because you're not successfully hiding it. It doesn't work.
Yeah, you can't put trees up to the.
And so I think if you had, and then you've got these weird funky dig-ins that you're already there, those block walls, but if you put stairs, welcoming stairs that went right down to the corner in between those, they would sort of just blend away. And then you could come up to a porch, and we've talked about a relaxation of setbacks, and you've got a corner lot, but I don't think that's gonna work so well here just because it's so prominent. But you could build porches out into the setback. That's allowed.
Well, but
And that would give you sort of a more of a one-story feeling that's interactive with the street, and then would help transition to the second-story elements, and then push the garage as far back as you can. Lose some of the basement. I think it's great that you've dug the basement in, but that garage needs to go back. To the extent you can find a way to take massing out of there and move it up, that would be great. And then once you get those sort of siding and massing and elements, then you can deal with architectural style, and I'll leave that to the experts.
well, but I mean, to your point, I think the siding's super critical. But I think I'm going to speak for myself. I think if you look at like I'm looking at the landscape plan, and the house is very orthogonal, like gridded. And like if there was an opportunity where you took the east side of that mast, like all that stuff, and even like rotated it, like so that it pushed out closer to the corner, and that opened up the middle of the house, for kind of this like, pulling you in, and that corner like peeked over the whatever that setback is. Like I wouldn't like the setback. I have less concern about, because precisely what you said. That east side, that should be not as close to the street as possible, but there's no point in masking that.
Right.
It's there. So like to say, well, we're gonna push it 25 feet or whatever it is, like, and we're gonna be at that.
10
That's
feet won't make a
arbitrary.
difference there.
Like that won't.
Right,
it's
right.
already there. So like let it come closer if it needs to, if it helps sort of the siding of this.
Yeah, I wouldn't have heartburn if you invaded the setback a little bit, but it's not an instance like the one that we approved way up at the top, where you just had to push the whole house, one direction, and we had an artificial setback from the easement that was doing nobody any good, so it's not a case where you can just like move this house.
No,
a
I
bit,
think
but-
it's it's something.
Yeah,
exciting.
and so if you could, I think make it more interactive, try to break up the boxiness, and then try to, as Tom was saying, try to find a way to bring that massing back. And I wasn't joking about the second unit ADU. I think if you could get that in and break that mass up, it would be great. It would help our arena numbers. But something, and the other thing is, if you could put stuff up, I mean, I fear that that, you said a later homeowner's gonna build a pergola up there. Well, if we're gonna put all this mass down in the corner and then they're gonna build a pergola, I'd rather just build something up there now and take some of the mass away, because it's gonna look big.
Well, and to your point, to both of your points on the basement, it actually, in a weird way, like the basement, this defies logic, on the ground where the garage is, makes less sense than actually putting a basement on the second floor back in, because what that will do is extend the mass into that upper hill, and then you can actually build, like on top of that,
Maybe you could have your elevator
Like the
go up to
basement,
the,
I've never said this will be the first time. I think the basement should be on the second floor.
and I'm writing that down.
I have a,
That goes right after cacophony of roofs.
So, the other thing is the placement of those mailboxes does not do you any favors. It's kind of like, a wart on your nose, and it's like, so maybe with the HOA, is there some place for them to go that gets them out of there? Because that will free up your presentation of the house from the street. And plus, if that's everybody's mailbox, they're all stopping there to look through those windows that you're
why-
putting on the front, and that's
but,
like.
But that's why I sort of think that you should try to make lemonade out of that lemon and say, look, here's the town, here's our
Yeah,
village
center.
center, right?
Yeah.
And so have stairs that come down, be more interactive. This is where people are going to stop. You can have the rocking chair out there and say hi. No one's ever going to do that, but it's an idea. But it could be sort of,
That's a possibility. But
try to welcome it instead of hide from it, because you're not hiding from it.
Yeah.
okay.
Good idea.
I would like to add, did you consider an alternate driveway location up by the change in grade where that existing concrete wall is? It seems like you can come in off the road there, off of Baldwin Court.
We didn't. We tried to keep it on Nathaniel to minimize. We thought Baldwin Court was a more visible street, more drivable, so eliminate the garage from that, and we did turn it to Nathaniel. But we can definitely study trying to hide it more from Nathaniel.
There was also, remember that house, was it on Grandview?
Yeah.
That had.
On the oak trees?
Yeah, and it had, it turned the entry to the garage slightly so it wasn't as visible, and that
was a new trick.
that would be helpful.
That was
Yeah,
another project where the actual mass bounced around as you
Right.
moved up to one, kind of be out of the oak trees way, but also the site kind of did that,
Right.
I think that was.
And I think if you have the, if you keep the garage on Nathaniel Terrace, if you just turn sort of the face clockwise a little bit, it would not be as visible as when you're driving up, and that might be a way you could try to mask its prominence a little bit. I think we have a consensus on continuing. Do you want us to continue to a date certain, or do you want us to take this off calendar?
Here's the calendar. I know we're coming across some busy months, or big holiday months.
Well, let's do it right before Christmas. Let's just set the-
Make sure you all come here.
yeah. It'll sail right through.
Our December 19th is booked. We're
So we
doing-
have
we're doing
a
parking.
January 16th, February 6th, February 20th.
We might be able to do January 15th.
I move,
Yeah, I think you want February.
Maybe
Yeah.
February.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're gonna really,
I-
this is a ground up.
Only because also that would give staff a 4-day turnaround time because we're closed between.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Christmas
True.
and New Year's.
So February 6th, February 20th.
20's a good day.
Let's do the 20th.
Yeah.
I move we continue Hillside Development Permit number 15-20 and conditional use permit 15-21 to a date certain of February 20th.
Cool. I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, that will conclude our public hearings for the evening. Next, we will move to Planning Commissioner reports. Does anybody have anything to report? Okay, then we will move to staff reports.
So the chair of the Planning Commission, vice chair of the Planning Commission will have a quarterly liaison meeting with our city council delegate, and that is going to be taking place on December 19th, just prior to this meeting. For that same meeting of the 19th, we continued a project to a date certain, 661 Mariposa Avenue. We haven't had further communication on that, so.
Have not?
Some, not through me, so I'm not sure how much, if that's going to occur or not. But on that date, we also did push back the ADU, accessory dwelling unit legislative update that our Deputy City Attorney Alex Garagosian will be delivering that evening, so we'll certainly have that as an item. And possibly a second design review application also that evening, yet to be complete.
Does that mean we're not going to have time to do the parking? Because the subcommittee will be ready to have materials by then.
We could see if one of those drops,
Uh-huh.
then I can put the parking item on.
Okay.
Otherwise, it'd probably be pushed to January 16th.
What date do you need to get the stuff by? Is like a week ahead?
If you do what we've done in the past for the subcommittee meetings is come in with a memo.
Uh-huh.
That can go pretty quickly because I won't do a staff report based on your memo.
Okay.
And that concludes my comments, other than we are canceling the December 5th meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, so we will adjourn to.
I'm sorry,
yeah.
I did have a comment.
Oh.
I did receive an email from the community during, after our last meeting where we solicited comments from the community. I don't know how we're supposed, am I supposed to get those to you and you can publish those?
You could get those to us, and if we wanted to put that in the record, we could always read that at the next meeting and reference it, and I can put that on the agenda. And that is in reference to the,
I believe it was in reference to the potential revision of the, what was it that we talked about? We talked about
Design standards.
all night, the design standards.
okay.
Was the feedback like it was must-see TV? I got a lot of feedback.
Did you get a lot of feedback?
Yeah, saying that they enjoyed watching
Vigorous
that
debate.
episode.
Did you pay people for that feedback?
No, I heard from people too.
Okay.
My running joke when people say, "Hey, I seen you on TV," I go, "Oh, you're one of 5 people who watch. That's great. Thank you."
Yeah.
This time it was different.
Okay. Well, with that, I will adjourn the meeting until December 19th.